This will be a quick guide for 9.5-12, or the boss fight against Rufo. I will only be going over what are the most important passives, effects, or skills in the fight, alongside the rotations and the best strategies or IDs to use. Also, apologies in advance to any French speakers for some future pronunciations. Before we get started with the boss, there are a few important things to note about the minions. She summons 4 Ring Felvis students at the start of the battle, but their skills aren't a major issue, just that their passives synergize well with Rufo. First off, both on hit and on death, they inflict Maude Color Bleu or Maude Color Rouge. The effects aren't really that important, other than the fact that they make you lose 5 SP at 5 stacks or defense level down for every 4 stacks, respectively, and goes down by 1 each turn. The dangerous part is the synergy with Rufo's skills. She generally gains clash power depending on how many debuffs your IDs have. One final thing to note about the minions is that they give +2 ego resources for the least owned affinities on death as well. Moving on to the main threat of the node, Rufo. I'll start with the passive since that's the most important part of her phase 1. The most important passive, the Ring's Docent of Felvism, allows her to gain 2 protection for every Felvis student on field. However, if there are no Felvis students, she will instead gain 2 fragile and reduce SP to 0. If she's about to get hit by a 1 attack weight skill, a Felvis student will take the hit instead of her. After using the Gloom skill Critique, she will refill any defeated vacant Felvis students back up to 4. However, these substituted students will gain fragile and offense level down, equal to the number of students defeated up to that point. Her next passive, Le Felvisme Couleurs Salvages, inflicts 1 Palais Vibrante to sinners with Maude Color Rouge, Maude Color Bleu, and Touche Hardy at the same time. The notable aspects of Palais Vibrante is that IDs take more damage from ring units. She will also cause students to unstagger themselves if they are staggered, at the cost of making them fatal to all attack types next turn. She will start the battle with these 2 skills, but they aren't important, other than the fact that they gain coin power based on sinking and bleed. On the next turn, she uses the less skill Le Felvisme Déchaînement Primal, which applies Touche Hardy. The turn after, she will use Critique, which gains 2 clash power for every type of negative effect up to 12, and will gain another 6 clash power and deal 100% more damage if the target has Palais Vibrante. However, if an ID with Palais Vibrante uses a defense skill, Critique still gains 6 clash power, but deals minus 90% damage. On hit with Critique, the skill is reused up to 2 times, 1 time if she lost the clash, and won't reuse it all if the target used a defense skill. One final thing to note is that you will most likely have a decent sinking stack after this turn, since she can't activate sinking on hit after a clash lose with Critique, and Critique inflicts 2 potency and count for both sinking and bleed. This is the entire cycle of phase 1, repeating this pattern until 70% HP, or about 1712 HP, with the stagger threshold being at 1860. Against Le Felvisme Déchaînement Primal, you either want the ID to be missing both Maude colors, or evade if they do have both. Otherwise, you will have to use a high clashing ego to win the clash against Critique next turn, or just use a defense skill and tank it. If you have a clashable guard that can win the clash against Critique, that is also preferred over a normal skill, since it limits the damage, bleed, and sinking infliction. Finally, I'd recommend double slotting a powerful ID with an evade, since Kira can serve as a 7th slot on the first turn. Keep repeating the process until reaching the next phase. In phase 2, the minions disappear, and it's just a 1v1 against Rufo. The only passive she keeps is Le Felvisme Couleurs Salvages. She also takes minus 30% damage from unopposed attacks, and deals plus 30% damage with unopposed attacks. Another passive now gives her 8 protection at turn start, and loses 2 protection for every type of negative effect at turn start. Finally, she gains a status that gives her +1 min-max speed. Onto the skills. On turn 1, they aren't very notable, except for Le Felvisme Déchaînement Brutal, mirroring the previous Le Felvisme Déchaînement by inflicting Touche Hardy. On the next turn, she will use mostly the same skills, but now will use the Gloom skill, the Thrill of Inspiration. It has 3 attack weight, and is guaranteed to afflict Palais Vibrante on hit next turn unless evaded. The next turn, she will use Burst Forth the Pulsing Crimson under your skin, an unfocused volley that prioritizes targets with Ballet Vibrante, gains final power for every negative effect on use, as well as 6 clash power and plus 100% damage if the target has Ballet Vibrante, but will deal 90% less damage to targets with Ballet Vibrante and if they have a defense skill equipped, although the skill doesn't trigger defense skills. At 35% HP, she gains a new effect that lets her deal 20% more damage, converts all coins to unbreakables, and gains 1 min and max speed. On turn 1, just try to build up the core status you're running around, and just keep clashing. On turn 2, try to have the best clashing ID or ego, avoid getting inflicted with Ballet Vibrante, both from the Thrill of Inspiration and Le Favisme Déchaînement. On turn 3, when she uses the skill, bursts forth the Pulsing Crimson under your skin. Clash with an ally without many negative effects, or whatever wins the clash really, and have the allies with Ballet Vibrante to use a defense skill, unless there is already a valuable skill there. Then just repeat the cycle until the fight's over. The best strategy I can come up with this fight is to bring damage dealers, namely with Gloom or Lust skills since the enemies are weak to these affinities, preferably with IDs with AoE skills too. Think of Manager of La Mancha Dawn, Ring Hong Lu, and so on. However, if you are going to run Blood Fiends, be careful since bleed count is easily applied to IDs this fight. Plus, the self-afflicted bleed will give the enemies coin power. Undoubtedly, the best ID to run in this fight is Ring Hong Lu, since he has an evade, is very strong, and works very well being double slotted, since you can both clash and avoid the unbreakable coins, and gain assist defense, so you don't even lose a skill while evading. Plus, it makes his ramp up time significantly shorter, and you get an event reward bonus for using him. In terms of teams, the easiest is probably Sinking, because that's just how it is for SP fights. I'd also recommend Burn, due to how easy it is to stack. Plus, Kira also helps with the burn stack. Many of you are probably going to be using Bleed, since that's what the event bonus IDs are. However, it's a little hard to use if you don't have Sanguine Desire. Since Rufo has such an absurd amount of coins, it can be hard to build a Bleed stack. And while Kira can help with the Bleed stack, the RNG required to get the right skills from her just isn't reliable enough. The teams I'd recommend least are Poise, Envy Res, and especially Tremor. For Poise, it's because Rufo is very resistant to Pride. Envy Res IDs have it really tough since she just inflicts so much bleed and sinking. And Tremor Reverb is just horrible in this fight. Not only is she super resistant to Sloth, she can evade a lot of Tremor bursts in the first phase thanks to her passive. If you guys thought this guide was useful and want to see more, like and subscribe. A lot of time went into creating this, and let me know in the comments below if there's anything you thought I missed in this guide. Thanks for watching.